Good afternoon. Welcome to 231 Newsroom. My name is Sarah, and with me I have my co-host,
Mallory. So today's top story, lung cancer is the leading cause of all cancer-related deaths.
According to the Canadian Cancer Society, there's a reported 29,400 cases annually, and of these, 14,900 are males and 14,500 are females. The mortality rate of these cases are actually quite high, with the male death count being 10,900 and females being 10,100. The expectancy of survival past 5 years in men is only estimated at 15% and women is 22%. If we look at the statistics, 13% of all new cases are lung cancer, and the rest making up all other cancer types at 87%. And then deaths for lung cancer are 26%, while all other cancer types are 74%.
now over to Mallory with the two types of lung cancers.
Lung cancer arises from epithelial cells lining the trachea, bronchi, alveoli, and lungs. This type of cancer can be divided into two categories, one being small cell lung cancer, which accounts for 15%, and the other being non-small cell lung cancer, which accounts for the other 85%. Small cell lung cancer is located in the central primary bronchial region and causes compression and narrowing of the bronchi and can be quite widespread and metastasizes quickly. For the purpose of today's show, we're going to be discussing non-small cell lung cancer, which can be divided into three subtypes: adenocarcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and large cell carcinoma. Adenocarcinoma develops in glandular tissue. Squamous cell carcinoma, which usually originates in the central bronchi and is associated with mucosa ciliary epithelial cells. And large cell carcinoma, which develops in central bronchi or the peripheral portion of the lungs, with squamous and glandular features.
Now back to Sarah with mutations.
The transformation of a normal lung cell to a malignant carcinoma requires the accumulation of multiple genetic and epigenetic alterations. It is believed that the alterations are caused by point mutations or chromosomal deletions that inactivate tumor suppressor genes. The activation of the oncogenes results in the overproduction of cells. One oncogene that could be mutated is the epidermal growth factor receptor, and it would result in rapid growth of cells. Lung cancer can be developed by there being too many of these receptors, too many growth factors, or mutations of these receptors. When these receptors are mutated, it can cause them to think growth factors attached when it isn't. This allows many cells to escape cell death and continue to divide. Inactive tumor suppressor genes can also contribute to lung cancer cell growth. TP53 is the gene that codes for the p53 protein. This protein activates transcription factors, and the result of this would be the regulation of apoptosis of damaged cells and the control of cell proliferation. When this protein is mutated, it is unable to regulate either of these, resulting in a rapid and irregular cell growth.
So in addition to these mutations, cancer cells also rely on an adequate blood supply to continue to develop into a small malignant tumor. The mass leads to induced blood vessel growth called angiogenesis to supply themselves with nutrients required for cell growth. Angiogenesis is triggered by the increased number of proteins found within the tumor known as vascular endothelial growth factor. A high number of these proteins are required for angiogenesis to occur. This protein is going to bind onto the receptor, causing formation of new blood vessels. So now going into the risk factors, there are three main ones that we want people to be aware of, and that includes smoking, genetics, and exposure to radon gas, which is an odorless, colorless gas that is released from uranium in the soil.
Now join me for symptoms with Sarah.
So Mallory, how would I know if I have lung cancer?
That's a great question, Sarah. So the symptoms are going to be dependent on the stage and the location of the cancer, and symptoms related to lung cancer often don't arise until the later stages.
Okay, so that would attribute to the high mortality rate associated with lung cancer.
Yes, exactly. So some of the other symptoms, though, that you can watch out for are chest pain, coughing up blood, unexplained weight loss and loss of appetite, and the most concerning of all is problems breathing, such as shortness of breath or coughing that does not subside. The lack of oxygen would result in hyperventilation. And due to the narrowing of the airways caused from the lung cancer, it becomes harder for oxygen to enter your lungs. This will cause a depletion in gas exchange. The increased levels of CO2 in the blood and the decreased levels of O2 are going to cause acidosis. If you are experiencing
Any of these symptoms, please go see Sally Stewart.
during your office hours.
And that's it from us here at the 231 Newsroom. Thanks for watching.
Keep it scholarly, BSCN students.
Cancer does not suddenly appear. It is something that develops over many years, and proteins play a large role in each stage of lung cancer. The p53 protein is a tumor suppressor gene that, when mutated, is unable to regulate cell death and cell proliferation. Growth factors and epidermal growth factor receptors are also proteins that, when mutated, attribute to cancer. The overproduction of either growth factors, growth factor receptors, or mutations to either of these would cause an increased rate of cell proliferation, leading to a disruption in the balance of cell death and new cell production. The protein involved in angiogenesis, which is the development of new blood supply needed to sustain tumor growth, is known as vascular endothelial growth factor. A high number of these proteins are found within the tumor, and they are going to trigger angiogenesis.
Homeostasis is disrupted depending on the stage and location of the cancer. This is partially due to the mutations of proteins caused from environmental and genetic factors. Homeostasis is also disrupted by the obstruction in the airway due to tumor growth. As the tumor grows, the airway narrows. This could result in hypoxia. Because of the lack of oxygen entering the lungs and the decrease in gas exchange, there's going to be an increase in the levels of CO2 in the blood, causing a drop in pH known as acidosis. The importance of cell membranes is that they provide a foundation for protein receptors to embed themselves in. The epidermal and vascular endothelial growth factor receptors found on the cell membrane are responsible for angiogenesis, cell apoptosis, and proliferation, and are directly linked to the growth of cancerous cells.